Welcome to Roots, Routes and Voices, Stories That Shape America. I'm Clara Matonhodze, your co-host and creator of the series. Every person you'll meet in this podcast has roots somewhere. A place, a language, a table they grew up at. And at some point, they chose a different route. To live, to stay, to begin again in America. What happened along that route shaped everything. And what they built when they arrived, whether it was a business, a community, lifestyles that didn't exist before they got here, that became their voice in this country. Those roots, those routes, those voices, this is what this podcast is made of.
And I'm Bryan Wright, Executive Director of Cincinnati Compass and your co-host. A quick note before we begin. The views and stories shared here are those of our guests and do not reflect those of Cincinnati Compass. We believe every voice has a place, especially when it shapes the future of our cities. We would also like to thank our hosts and sponsors who made Season 2 possible, thanks to the Marketer Collaborative and the Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Roots, Routes and Voices, Stories That Shape America, a Cincinnati Campus podcast. I'm your host, Clara Matonhodze.
And I'm Bryan Wright, Executive Director of Cincinnati Compass, and your co-host. The views and stories shared on this podcast are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Cincinnati Compass. We believe every voice has a place, especially when it shapes the future of our cities.
That's right. And Bryan, I have a question for you. Like always, before we start, I always have a question for you. Let's see how smart you are.
All right, go ahead.
So when you think about the moments that made you who you are, the ones that shaped everything about who you are, the ones that shaped you after it, do you think you chose them or do you think they chose you?
I think most of the ones that matter most, they chose me. And then you just figured out later what to do with them.
And that's exactly why I want us to start today, because our guest is a woman whose whole life, her story, her work, the fact that she's even in this room with us today begins with a moment that she did not choose. She was 9 years old and the world moved her.
Yes, Mamta Bajgain came to Cincinnati through the United Nations Resettlement Program. She is Bhutanese Nepali, part of a community that spent years in camps before reaching American cities. She grew up here. She studied psychology at Miami University, and today she is a program coordinator with the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, doing outreach work specifically within Bhutanese Nepali communities across Ohio.
Mamta is also the chair of the Cincinnati Nepali Language and Arts Center, a board member of the Asian Community Alliance, and a Beacon Award honoree from Ellis Island Honor Society. She's the kind of person who shows up everywhere her community needs her, and she does it without making it about herself.
Which, if you know anything about this kind of work, is exactly the profile of someone worth listening to.
So let's get into it. Mamta Bajgain, welcome to Roots, Routes and Voices, Stories That Shape America.
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now let's start at the very beginning. You were 9 years old when you arrived in Cincinnati. That's old enough to have a full childhood somewhere else, probably in Bhutan, and young enough that in America has not become most of your life. When you picture where you come from, what do you see?
When I was actually not born in Bhutan, I was born in a refugee camp in Nepal.
Okay.
And when I picture my childhood in the refugee camp, I see a makeshift bamboo hut divided into, let's say, a 5-section. A section for like a living room area, a kitchen, and then 3 sections for a bedroom for my parents, a bedroom for my brother, and a bedroom for me and 3 of my other sister. Mm-hmm. And I also see my mom and my sisters lining up with buckets to get water for the day at the water point, and that was scheduled like in the morning and the evening. So I see them lining up. I was too young to carry the bucket, so I never had to do that. I see that. I also see my sisters not burning, like we would have those kerosene lamps, and then when they were studying at night, them like burning, like falling asleep and burning their hair.
Oh, Like lit their hair literally on fire?
Like not, it wasn't like the lamps were small, right? So it wasn't like big fire, like scary fire, but like they would realize it when they wake up like in the morning and then like feel like, you know, your texture, like your hair is just like after it's, like burning your hair with like a straightener, but it's like harder. And then like making fun of them for it. But if I were to give you like a vivid memory of my childhood, I remember jasmine flowers. I remember it with all of my senses. The smell, the feel, everything.
Were these in the refugee camp? Because when I think of refugee camp, I'm literally imagining, probably this is a stereotype, like what we see in Hollywood movies, where it's probably like, so in your case, it was bamboo. Can you say homes, or were they more like shacks? And it's just like massive amounts of people and massive amounts of shacks on like a large land mass.
Yes, it was in like a large land. It was stacked next to each other, but like not, you know, I think when people think of like refugee camp, you think of like a tent. Yeah. But it was, in some way, it had like a structure. It wasn't like a strong like home, but it had some sort of structure with like a roof. And home, like, because I think about it, my parents were in the refugee camp for 18 years. You can't live in a tent for 18 years.
18 years.
Yeah, so they had, I think either UNHCR and WHO, like all the organizations that were helping us during the time had figured out a living situation that wouldn't like blow away overnight, right? Like if there was a wind. So yeah, I would say it had a structure. I wouldn't call it like a bamboo home, but it had a structure.
So the jasmine flowers were just growing all over the camp, or?
No, we had my sisters and my mom, like they were big into flowers. So we had like a little bit of space in front of our hut. And then we had this like tree, jasmine tree. Now that I think about it, it was tall. So it had probably been there for many years. But I started noticing it when I was probably like 5.
Okay.
And it would, so that jasmine, it's the one that blooms at night. So when I woke up in the morning and like stepped outside, it would be all over the yard. And you could like smell it. And
I can smell it now.
Yeah. It's my favorite scent. Like I try to find like perfumes and lotion now that reminds me of the scent. It's not the same though.
Yeah, it's never the same.
Yeah.
So 18 years, that's a long time to be in limbo, because I imagine your parents for those 18 years, it was always maybe next week we'll get placement, or maybe a month from now we'll be somewhere. Like I imagine during those 18 years, it never quite was like, this is where we are and we're going to be here for the next 18 years when they first moved in. Do you have a sense, maybe from talking to them, what that was like to them from the time that maybe they went into the camp and then spent 18 years in there?
Yeah, definitely. So they weren't thinking about getting placements like elsewhere. Like their only thought was like being able to go back to Bhutan and get their lands back, get their homes back. And so they didn't have an option to choose where to resettle. If my parents were given an option like, oh, you can go back to Bhutan, they would 100% go back to Bhutan. We did not choose to come here. We did not have an option.
Yeah. And that's part of the refugee settlement process in general, is that you do not get to choose that new country. You're told when to go and where to go, right? So when you mentioned that your parents had been there for 18 years already, you were 9 when you eventually came to the U.S. So so you were born in the refugee camp. And you mentioned your siblings. Were all of your siblings born in the refugee camp, or some came with your parents? Yeah,
my brother and I were born in the refugee camp, and my older sisters were born in Bhutan. So they have little memories from Bhutan.
So with your siblings, are you the youngest? Are you in the middle?
I am the youngest.
Okay.
I am not spoiled though, I'll tell you that.
What else do you remember about this period of your family story? Like, how are you not spoiled as a youngest? I don't think that matters whether you're in a refugee camp or...
Actually, no, I think if you were to ask my siblings, they will tell you I was spoiled.
Oh, okay. Yes, because no one ever admits that, I was spoiled.
So when they listen, they'll be like, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. You had because they always joke about this even now, even in the refugee camp, like I would always get an allowance to buy candy, and because I have a big age gap between me and my sisters, so like I would have allowance to get candy or cookies or whatever, and they didn't, like my friends or them, they didn't have that privilege. So but I remember being outside with my friends and just connecting with nature in the refugee camp.
Yeah. What did your parents pass down to you about, like, how did you understand this living situation you were in as you're growing up? You're 5, you're 6, 7. Yeah.
Back when I was young, I actually thought we were wealthy.
Yeah.
Because we always had food. I would get an allowance to buy candy and cookies every day. But if I look back now, my comparison was people who didn't have enough to eat. That's why I thought we were good. Even though we were living in a situation like that where there was no running water, no electricity, and my parents were going through so much just to provide for us. But we never got to see that. Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that just blow your mind? So you're growing up in a refugee camp and you're thinking you're wealthy. Meanwhile, the world outside is looking at people in refugee camps and really feeling sorry for them. Like, it just puts a whole perspective into what we think in terms of material wealth, like what's important and what's not important. If you're growing up in this circumstance and you're loved, you've got a couple of pennies, maybe, where you get some type of luxury, which is you being able to buy candy. And you just think like, oh, I'm actually the cool kid on the block.
I'm the coolest kid.
And it sounds like it says also a lot about your parents, right? Like creating an environment in a not normal situation. There's the story behind why they came to and arrived in this camp. You were provided with love and caring and support from your family so that you had as best as that they could help provide a normal life, right? Whatever normal is, right? But it just says a lot about your parents and what they provided for you at that time and the relationships you built with your siblings.
Definitely. Like, I can't imagine like the trauma they had of being replaced, right? Like, you call this place your home, like you're like 4 or 5 generations of your family has been living there, and then suddenly you're told you don't belong here, and then you're kicked out. You have nowhere to go. You just leave with whatever clothes you have, the little food, and then like your little kids, and then you come to the camp and you're trying, you don't want your kids to see that. So I'm very thankful for how like my parents have raised us.
So Mamta, do you understand how that happened? Are you able to give us just a very brief history of how is displacement the right word? Of how the displacement happened, how your parents came to be in the camps? Just like put that into context for us. Like how did that happen?
Yes, so I think it was my dad's great-grandfather when he was 4 years old. That's when his families they used to live in the mountains in Nepal, and then there weren't enough the population in Bhutan. So Bhutan opened this thing where they wanted other migrant workers to come to Bhutan and work, and they were promised land and home. And like they had abundance of land. So they were like, come work here, come live here, we need people. So like this group of people from Nepal migrated, like I think it was back in like, I don't even know, 1700s. And then that's what they've been living there. There's the population grows, right? Like it's the Nepali population in Bhutan is growing. And all of a sudden, Bhutan decides that they are not going to let the Nepali population practice their religion, practice their culture, and they're like, we're gonna have one nation, one culture, one rule, whatever they called it. And they were not, like, the Hindus weren't allowed to celebrate the religious holidays, their culture. And it was like a whole, I would describe it as like an ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, they wanted to nationalize everyone who was there, who living in Bhutan, regardless of where you'd come from. It's like, okay, now here we are, we have this maybe national identity that they're trying to force everybody to conform into.
Yeah, like and you don't, like, it's, they're trying to take away like your freedom.
Yeah.
To like practice a religion. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you showed, when you showed up, were your parents sharing the story with you in the camp? Was it later on when you came to the U.S.? Like, had you already known about the family history? I'm sure they talked about family members, you know, cultural, religious, like heritage. I'm sure they shared that with you. But this experience, was this something they were always talking with you about, or was it later?
Later, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't until I asked a lot. If you ask my dad, I do annoy him sometimes with a lot of questions. So I'm always asking questions. Like, whenever like we travel, I ask so many questions. I'm like, we're not gonna listen to any music. I'm gonna ask questions. So,
Good for
it
you.
wasn't.
Learn, right?
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't whatever happened in Bhutan. I didn't learn about it until I was older. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So when you're in the refugee camp, and I imagine you're also going to school and studying a little bit. What was it? I'm sorry. Was it a large camp? Was it small? Like, was it kind of its own little micro city?
So everyone was divided into 7 camps, and there were 7 camps in this part of Nepal, western part of Nepal. But it was everyone, like, looking back, maybe like 20,000 in one camp.
Oh,
wow.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were in like a limited
city.
space.
Yeah. 20,000.
Do you remember that when your family received notification that you would be leaving the camp and going?
Yes, I actually remember it vividly. My dad was actually one of the first. We were one of the first family in the camp to leave, and I just remember being very excited, and everyone else was scared. And I would see my parents had to go to like orientation and go through all this like vetting process, right? And they would give them like books, and I obviously didn't know how to read, but I would like look at pictures, and there would I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty and the big buildings, and I just remember being very excited.
Yeah. So this is something they had been anticipating. So at 9 years old, were you always aware that you can move at any moment?
No, I don't think they were either. It was not something that we knew was coming. It just came out of nowhere. There were obviously the organizations were like working towards it, but not a lot of people knew about it. That's why in the beginning, when the processes first like opened, people were hesitant. They were like, "We're gonna go back to Bhutan. We're not."
Because they wanted to go back to Bhutan versus going to a whole other country. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I think my dad by then had realized that if we had already been here for 18 years, like we're not going. I think that's when he had the realization that he was not going to go back to Bhutan.
Do you know how old your parents were at this point?
My dad was in his 40s.
40s.
When
Wow.
we resettled here, yeah.
So 40s, and he had to start all over again in a new country. And were you speaking English in the camps?
Well, like we had at school there, we were learning English, but my parents, like in where they grew up in Bhutan, in like a village, so they never went to school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of education for them with the prospect of coming to America. Yeah.
So when you realize like there's the classes and the workshop, like coming to the U.S. and expectations around, you see the Statue of Liberty, some questions about values. I imagine like what you were taught versus what you actually experienced, right?
Yeah.
So what did you like
When you landed
when
in
you came to the
Cincinnati?
US? Where do you was it here in Cincinnati or?
Yes, we came to Cincinnati. And yeah, we like the first few days we were so tired. I think we probably slept for like a week.
Right.
Yeah.
You were tired?
Yeah.
From?
With the time change and being jet lagged, it was the first time we had been on a plane, right? So
Yeah,
it was like a whole new experience. And then I had too much sweets on the plane, and I was just sick. But I just remember like thinking we slept for like a week. And when I woke up and went outside, there were no buildings. We were put in a quiet neighborhood in Coleraine Township, and it was so quiet. I didn't see any tall buildings. There was no one outside. It was very confusing.
Oh, the tall buildings were what you were expecting from seeing all
the pictures.
From like New York City
Yeah,
and
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you ended up in Coleraine, and
Very
so
confusing.
yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, not to get ahead, but you know, the classic Cincinnati question: where'd you go to high school?
She's 9,
It's
so it
a
would be elementary. Like, where?
I went to Coleraine High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you're, I mean, obviously there's some time in between those, between when you arrived in high school, and so like, were there other as you're going through school, in Coleraine, and then do you mind sharing what that kind of experience was like? I mean, being in school, I can imagine there were, I don't know, but
First day of school.
yeah.
Our first day was, now when I look back now, it's actually funny. So I started 4th grade, right? On the first day of school, I remember like going to school, and then I was going through a lunch line, and you know those, I used to love ice cream. You know, the chocolate covered, like those, what are those called? Like chocolate, it's like a popsicle.
Oh, okay.
But, like, it's
like the
chocolate.
fudge.
Yeah, like they come in different shapes, right? So I'm
yeah.
going through a lunch line, and then I'm like, I get really excited. I'm like, oh my God, I get to have like this ice cream for lunch? Like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I'm vegetarian, okay? I don't eat meat.
Okay.
And then turns out it was actually a corn dog.
Oh,
I just thought it was ice cream.
Oh no.
popsicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was like
it
was
looked
like a chocolate
It
popsicle.
looked like it was covered in chocolate. The dough is dark, so
Yeah.
in my mind, it looked like chocolate. So that was the first reality that hit me, and I was like, no, not what I think. And then I was the only Bhutanese Nepali kid at my school at that time, so I didn't know anyone. And I went and I sat next to this girl who was sitting by herself at a table. And I was like, oh, she's probably new to it and she doesn't have any friends. Turns out she had detention. That's why she was sitting there. And so, yeah, I got myself in detention without knowing the first time.
I'll be in detention with you.
Yeah.
So I think I saw somewhere that you have said that for years, middle school, high school, you didn't really talk about where you're from, and even with people that were close to you. What was the calculation that you were making? Why were you nervous about talking about where you were from?
I think when I look back now, I was protecting myself from the shame that I thought came with being labeled as a refugee.
Yeah.
And that's why I never talked about it, because from what I have heard and seen in the refugee camp, we were told to not advertise that because it would limit what the opportunities that we would get, and people would see us as inferior, which they did. Like the local community in Nepal where we were resettled, they looked down upon us because we were refugees. And like seeing that when I was growing up, like I think it stayed in my mind, and that's why the whole time I thought I was protecting myself.
Yeah, like you're being constantly having people look at you as a victim and feel sorry. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this is a hard question, but did you feel that same experience when you were here and when you first arrived in the U.S.? Did you feel that kind of?
I don't know if I felt it, but I think I had seen in Nepal had such a like strong image in my mind that I thought, even if they didn't, but like in my mind, they did.
Yeah.
You know, like when you have that, like, because I think even here, like when I talk to people now, when I say, oh, I'm a refugee, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, you don't need to feel sorry. Like, you know, there's that, like, the negative connotation associated with being a refugee. People don't see it as, oh, like you went through all that hardship. Like they just see it as, oh, I'm so sorry. Like you were a victim and you don't have anything.
Yeah. So what changed, Mamta? Because I totally relate with what you're saying. Now, I'm not a refugee, but I can definitely relate with the calculation of, like, what parts of yourself do you bring into a room? What do you share? What do you not share? You know, like, what are people comfortable with hearing? You know, like, I totally relate with that. But what changed for you to get to a point where you started to realize that, you know, maybe people are comfortable, or maybe they never are, but I'm just trying to understand, like, now where you sit and we're talking, we're talking with you here, and I know later on we're going to get into some of the work that you're doing.
Right.
What changed for you?
So what changed was during, I believe it was my sophomore year of college, one of my mentor had invited me to go to this event at the Women's Club of Cincinnati. I believe that's they were bringing in an author from, I believe she was from Denver, who had written a story about these refugee students from Africa and how basically how they resettled here, how they succeeded through high school, and now they're going to like getting a full ride scholarship and going to college. And she was like sharing that story, the success story, to everyone. And that's when I realized, this is my story. Like, I have done all of these things. Like, I do not need to be ashamed of those things, of where I come from. Like, this just shows that I'm hardworking. And my, like, people will not, like, when I saw the positive responses that she got from, like, the stories, like, that's when the light switch went. And
do you know who that person was?
Yes, her name is Helen Thorpe. The last name I might have mispronounced, but Thorpe.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the book because I think it was a public event at maybe Memorial Hall.
Yes, it was
that
at
I went
Memorial
to.
Hall.
I was at that. I went to that event. I remember the author. She was reading from a book, part of the stories, and
yes,
I remember that. I think the event was at Memorial Hall.
It was
by the Women's Club. Yeah. So
That's
really
That's interesting. You're there at the same time, right? So that's so Cincinnati.
That's crazy.
But I think you just took us through like a back and forth, right? Like you're talking about growing up and from your parent and hearing from your parents that you had, as far as you knew, a life of abundance, right? And you felt like it was more like asset based, if you will, the way we talk about now. Like it wasn't a deficit. You felt like you were the rich family, you know, if not in material ways, that you had a good family that loved you and cared. You had like neighbors and such. And then you're told, hide a part of who you are. That's horrible. I'm sorry. That's just, and then you're taught to hide, you know, about who you are, because that makes up who you are. And then you have this experience with this author sharing this story. So it comes back. And so it seems like, I don't know, as I'm hearing it, it sounds more of like not a new discovery, but you're finding something that was already there, and with your family talking to you, like you have this abundance, right? And so I just think that's really kind of powerful, and just thinking about it, I don't have a question there. It's just reflecting on it. But so when you go to this,
that's why stories are powerful,
right? Absolutely.
This is partly why we do this series, right? It is showcasing ordinary people whose stories you don't always hear. So in that case, the author with the book and the stories that she had written about those African refugees that it's resettled here and how great they were doing, you know. And I also like that it helped you find yourself, and those stories also shatter the myth, right, of the struggling refugees, to say, no, you can come here and you can become a fully fledged member of the society. You can be successful. And all the resettlement programs work, because that's really what happened to the characters in the book. Well, they're not characters, they're real people. But the people that she focuses on the book and in Mamta's story, it works.
So when you go to see this, you said you're at university. Where were you studying, and what was the university? What were you studying? How did you choose the major you were focusing on?
So, yeah, when this happened, I was going to Miami University.
Okay.
I was starting psychology. It wasn't like I didn't choose psychology because there's like a deeper story. I just liked psychology when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I like this. I'm going to figure out what to do with this because this is interesting. And Miami University because I got a full Wright scholarship. That was it.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
I'm not surprised. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so at Miami University, it sounds like you had a pretty good experience. And so I feel like my wife is also a psychologist, and as you know, Farah.
Yes.
So a lot of people choose psychology and then they move away from it for a variety of reasons, just like most undergraduates will change their degree. And so, but you stuck with it, right? And how does that training and education kind of influence like what you're doing now? And
I think I've also moved away from it and gotten back to it. I was in the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm not going to make any money. I want to make some money. So I moved away from it and I was like, this is not making me happy. I need to go back to helping people. So it's like you find your way back into it. Yeah.
I don't understand that about psychology. I meet a lot of people who say that you won't make any money in psychology.
Yeah.
And yet, having twin boys, I know how hard it has been to find a good therapist.
Yeah.
Or you find somebody and they're like, oh, there's a wait list for 3 months. I'm like, so how are people not making money in psychology when there's all this need?
You have to go to school for many years.
Oh, so you're figuring out, okay, if I'm in school for 7 years, how much am I getting compensated? And
I think, and then it's people also think about the burnout. It's is it worth it?
Yeah. Yeah.
you were talking about, you mentioned back and forth and then helping people, helping people in what way? Were you, with what was it, other students? Was it people in your community? And which community was that? And when you say helping people, what were you doing to help?
I think I've always, since I was in high school, I've been involved in nonprofit and volunteering and all of that. And I think I do it for my own reason. I find happiness in helping people, whether solving a problem for them. Yeah.
So you said you went back. You moved away from psychology and then went back to it in a professional capacity. You saw the data, right? That was showing. I think that's something that you said. You saw the data, what the data was showing in terms of rising suicides within the community, and nobody was talking about it. Do you want to talk about that? What is it like to walk into that? Some of those are
I think
people you knew in the community.
Yeah, so growing up, I had always noticed that our community, the Bhutanese Nepali community, we had a lot of issues that we needed to deal with, right? I grew up seeing it, but I don't think I thought about it in a deeper way until I was in college and I was taking all these courses and I probably shouldn't be saying it, but kind of diagnosing them.
I think you can say it. I have a cousin who's doing psychology. She's I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with our family.
I was doing exactly that. And it's but it's everyone can see it. I was not making up the symptoms.
Right.
And there's so much trauma. There's so much PTSD from being displaced, from coming into a country you know nothing about, not knowing the language, and isolation and all of that. And because of that, we kept seeing the rise in suicide in older males.
Older males.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, okay, we need to address this. Why is this happening?
And I don't think that's unique to the Bhutanese community at all. Even when it's interesting because we talk so much about coming to America and integrating into society, but it doesn't happen for all. There's a lot of challenges. I know, like, even within the African immigrant communities, there are a lot of suicide rates amongst males. And it has, I don't want to diagnose something that obviously I haven't done any studies on this, but it's just alarming. I don't think those rates within the immigrant communities are similar to, say, in the larger population. I tend to think that it's higher, because I don't think it's normal. If we were to ask like an average American whether they know or have heard of 5 or 6 people that have committed suicide, that they'll know, but I feel personally this is something that this year alone I've already heard amongst the different immigrant communities, so it's not something that's unique to the Bhutanese community, but I think immigrants as a whole, in just trying to adopt a new country, new norms, and then the separation from culture. So anyway,
definitely. I work with immigrant communities around Ohio, and all the immigrant communities are dealing with similar issues.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you're finding that too.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, right, like mental health, when you say issues, you speak of like mental health, and then those kind of those causes, right? The social determinants of health, right? And so how do you, there's just so much to tackle, right? To address, access to care, having culturally and linguistically relevant care, even naming this thing and how you talk about it in the community, because you might not recognize it as mental health. It might be the result of something else. That there's so many entry points into this work. How do you, I know you have your professional career, and then also you have, and we'll talk about this work that you do with a community organization. How do you enter into this space, like professionally and with a nonprofit?
I think my main thing is meeting whatever community that I'm working with, meeting them where they are, and finding, like, working through it slowly.
I think that's so important, meeting with them where they are.
Yeah.
Can you, tell us more about that. Tell us more about what you're doing on a professional level. Like, what's your work like day on a regular day?
Oh, my day looks different every day.
It can be a spike. Like mine, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows.
It's definitely highs
like
and lows.
that. Yeah.
But I work with new Americans and
new immigrants.
New immigrants.
Okay.
Yeah. And whether we've been here for 20 years or 5 years, we have issues. I know sometimes we think like, oh, they've been here for like 20 years. What issues could they have? We have issues like trauma build up. And if you don't address it, it gets worse. So just finding resources or developing resources that are specific to that community. What might work for the Bhutanese Nepali community might not work for the Ethiopian community.
Right.
Like, even though the mental health issues are similar, like isolation, being away from their country, yes. But our cultures are different, right? So we have to see it from like a cultural perspective. So I work closely with community leaders from each community to like walk through and develop programs that work for their specific community.
That's fantastic.
Do you encounter a lot of stigma in the work?
Yes. I thought Bhutanese Nepali community was the only one. I mean, I know like mental health is a taboo in general, but we just don't talk about it. But like the more immigrant communities I work with, the more I realize like it's a big taboo in every community. So
how do you how do you deal with that? How do you, I don't know if you can say break down the doors, but what are you doing in order to try and combat the stigma?
I do it through listening sessions where I have a diverse group of members from the specific community come to like a town hall meeting, and I ask direct questions, uncomfortable questions that they wouldn't really talk about, right?
Okay.
So it's
like
why do you think people in your community are committing suicide? What do you think of people who commit suicide? Like, because you really, to get to the bottom of it, you really need to know what the community thinks. So we can't beat around the bush. We have to get,
you have to name it.
You have to talk about the problems. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So, because I'm thinking I was thinking about what you said earlier about you have to meet the communities where they are, like how people think about, experience, process mental health related issues, either individually or as like structurally. It's different for the Bhutanese Nepali community. It's different for the Ethiopian community. And you're trying to leverage resources to support each of those communities. And I'm thinking about that as you're talking about like going and having these tough, hard questions. And it's really important who is asking those questions. And then how do you get, I appreciate how you're talking about how you have to ask the hard questions up front, but how do you build trust? Like, how does that start to happen? Is it the community leaders? How does that?
Yeah, so before we organize these like listening sessions or town hall meetings, I develop relationships with the community leaders, and then I go to like their events or whatever is happening in the community. So they are able to see me as a resource before I go and ask. Like, I can't just go in there, ask these questions and like disappear, right? I have to be like someone that they can trust, and if they need help, they can reach out to. So building trust is very important.
Seems like a key currency of the work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long does that take?
Sometimes it takes time. Yeah. Sometimes I think it helps that I don't look like an outsider most of the time. Like when I tell them, oh, I'm also an immigrant, I have also gone through this process, like they are able to relate to me. So like I try to share like a lot of my stories.
Yeah.
Do you feel, so they see like you've had this lived experience, you can relate to what they're sharing. And they also build that confidence too. Do you see that building trust, like you said, you said it a couple times, it takes time to build that trust. Do you feel like there's broader support from organizations that recognize that you can't just have a one size fits all intervention? It has to be tailored to communities, as you shared, but that takes time. Do you feel that organizations are shifting how they approach and how they do community education and intervention and collaboration, or is that a challenge as well?
I think in the last couple of years, I think there has been a shift, and organizations are considering the cultural sensitivity that is required to work with different populations. But I really think we need to emphasize it more, like in like schools. Like we get like new social workers, right? And then they're like, maybe they will learn on the job, but it takes time. But if they're already taught about these things and like they build that skills when they're in college, it would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Say Lara, we need more interventions in schools and more social workers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I think we will take a break and we'll come back and talk with Mamta about what she is building in Cincinnati. This has been a great conversation, Mamta. That's some deep stuff, yes.
Yeah.
But I think there is hope on the horizon, so we'll come back and we'll talk about that.
A word from our studio home this season. Roots, Routes and Voices records at the Marketer Collaborative at 15 East 14th Street in Cincinnati. It's a space built for people who believe that creative work and meaningful work belong in the same room. We do too. Schedule your tour at themarketercollab.com. Welcome back to Roots, Roots and Voices, Stories That Shape America, a Cincinnati campus podcast. We are talking today with Mamta Bajgain. Mamta this has been such a nice conversation so far. So, as is usual with our podcast, so the name Roots, Roots and Voices takes you through 3 different acts, right? So we've talked about the roots, we've talked about the roots, and now we are looking forward into digging into the voice, Mamta, that you have developed now for Cincinnati. We're going to talk about what you're building and who you're building it for. And it's been a really interesting conversation so far, just from your roots, living in a refugee camp, to now being this really strong voice in our community. You're the chair of the Cincinnati Nepali Language Arts Center. When you first started volunteering there, tutoring kids, doing the quiet and unglamorous work, did you think it would become this, or were you just showing up?
In the beginning, I was just showing up. I was helping in the best way I could, and that was by showing up, helping the kids.
Yeah.
And here I am 10 years later.
That's good. Not everybody shows up. You know, a lot of us sign up and we don't show up. So that is, that's great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Nepali Language and Art Center?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when we first started, we started as a way to like preserve our culture, like through language, like dance and like karate and all that. And then we started with that, but we realized we also had a lot of, we had other problems in the community that need to be dealt, but there were other organizations that was doing that in the beginning. So our focus was just like preserving the culture. And then later on, the other organizations kind of stopped doing those things. So we're like, okay, we can't just see these things happening. We have to get involved, help. So we started helping with like green card applications, citizenship applications. Like there were families that needed help applying for like SNAP benefits, Medicaid, all of that. So it started out as that, but now we kind of do everything. But our main focus is youth development.
Yeah. Okay.
And, yeah.
By the way, what's the population of like the Nepalese in Cincinnati?
We're all like spread out everywhere, so there's no exact number.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe like close to 15,000. Don't quote me on this.
That's okay. So the kids you would tutor at the center, like on average, how many kids would that be?
In the beginning, we were having like 50, 60 kids come. And then COVID happened.
That's quite a high number.
Yeah. And then like our numbers decreased a little bit. But now we have this like youth-led group of like high schoolers and like college students. We're just trying to help the community. So I'm just really proud of them.
That seems like a really good opportunity for the youth to be with other community members, whether, like you mentioned, karate or dance. So it gives them an opportunity to do things together in community, maintain language, learning about culture.
Yeah.
It seems like also like opportunities to become mentors and leaders as well. So
yeah. So yeah, these group of the older youth that we have, the goal is for them to be mentors for the younger ones and like keep developing that. Yeah.
Awesome. So Hamilton County has proclaimed a Mamta Bajgain Day in Cincinnati. And obviously, we know this comes from this is like an award that's given to people who have really made a difference in their communities or making a difference. So tell us more about some of the community work other than the tutoring that you're doing.
Yeah, so we do a lot with the community. We work, we help, like I said, meeting the community where they are and whatever they need help with. So we're just, I know like this is I think I wouldn't say my problem. This is everyone's problem. Okay. So we see with like a lot of nonprofits, they are able to help with one thing, but they would be like, oh, like our grants don't allow us to help with that. We're sorry. So it's like, but like, what do we do now? You can't just leave them hanging.
Right.
So it's like, we just focus on just like, just volunteering our time and providing that support, that like filling that gap almost.
Sounds like there's an ask and an opportunity for philanthropic organizations to invest in this gap that you're talking about.
Right.
There's a need there to
Definitely. Yeah, because when we talk about like look at like specific federal grant, state grant, they are specific, right? You can only do certain thing with it, but like when we're looking at someone who needs help, we need to look at a wraparound services, like, and we can't just provide them with one thing and expect them to be okay. We need to kind of walk through them, and that's what we do at Nepali Language and Art Center. We don't look at grants or what money we have. We volunteer we make sure we take time out of our day, whatever we're doing, to make sure that we're able to help the individual that comes to us.
So where do you think, you talk about the gaps in the work that you all do. Sorry, I have two questions. Sorry, Clara. The first one being like, where do you see those, like with those gaps, like in a more specific way, where would you think funding would be needed to help support the work that you're doing?
I think
maybe he's asking so he can give you some money.
Oh, definitely.
So
Brian always has a way.
Brian.
Sorry, I got distracted.
So where do you mentioned the gaps, right? And you said that, the Nepali Language Arts Center is filling gaps, where other organizations say, well, we can't help because we're funded to do A, and you're like, but we're doing B, C, and D, and there's no funding there. So like, where could you be specific about what are some things areas where you think more funding would be useful?
Yeah, so let's say we have had cases of like domestic violence, right? So I'll give you like an example. And there are, we can send someone to YWCA or like one of the shelters, but like we have to take the culture into consideration. Like that is a foreign like thing. Like the community does not go and live at a shelter. They try to go live with a family or like rent an apartment and like live and try to see if they can work it out. But like the current resources that exist only supports like shelter. Like first, it's like a process, right? First you go and live at a shelter and then you see where things go. And then they'll be like, we'll try to find you an apartment. It's like, we can't do that with this community because that doesn't work.
Yeah, like if you're not in the shelter, you can't get the resources that you actually need. Yes, yeah.
And do you see the other, because there was two. The other one was thinking about when you're talking about all the services that the center provides, the cultural piece, the language piece, karate, dance, there's others that you mentioned. And you were earlier, you were talking about, social services and those things. You were talking about mental health earlier. Do you see a connection between those two and mental health? Yeah.
100%. All of those things, like let's say if someone doesn't have like not having the SNAP benefits, like if you don't know where you're gonna get the money to buy your food, that affects like your mental health. If you don't know like where you're gonna go and live, that affects your mental health. Like I think all of those things factor into how your mental health is. So it's all related. That's why I think wraparound services are so important to like making sure our mental health is right.
That's great.
So between what we've just talked about, Mamta, the social services, assistance, tutoring, whether it's suicide prevention, trying to destigmatize mental health and all of that, that is a lot that you're carrying. You're working in a really intense area. What does that cost you? What does that cost you? And tell us, what does it give back to you? And cost, I don't mean as in dollars. I mean as in
Yeah.
on an emotional.
Oh, it doesn't cost. It definitely cost me on my emotional. It definitely cost me. Like, I don't get to spend as much time with my family and friends because I always have like meetings and stuff. So my sisters, they joke about how, oh, like she's probably gonna have a meeting in the middle of this hangout, or like, I know they're joking, but they also mean it because I do that.
Because
I'll be
it
like,
does happen.
I have to go join this meeting. I will be back, and we would be like at the middle of a park, and I go to my car and take the call or like get on a meeting. So they like, even though they're joking, they've seen it that like. You know, even when I am like hanging out with my family, that I make time for this because it's important to me.
Yeah. So I think as humans, we don't do things that don't pay us back in some way, one way or the other. What does it pay back to you? Like all this interrupted family conversations, time spent, and, yeah.
I think it gives me back like growing up in a refugee camp and like, feeling like we weren't poor. It was because there were so many hands helping us, right? Like we wouldn't be where we are today without the help of the many organizations and many people. And for me, it's a way to give back. Like I feel this responsibility now that I'm in a place to able to give back and help. Like I have this strong sense of responsibility that I need to do that. So it makes me feel good.
Yeah. Do you have any kids? We didn't talk about
No, I don't.
No, married?
I have kids.
I was like, no. There's you work with a lot of different communities, right? And well, before that, like this is that question of giving back and what the cost and what give back. That in this, I mean, you are a leader in the community. You are a trusted person in the community across many communities, not singular but plural. How do you find? We hear a lot about burnout, right? And you're talking. Your family members are making a joke like, "Oh, she's probably got a meeting," but we give. And when do you find time for self-care to take care of yourself, to find that, how do you find that balance? Or maybe you don't have it yet and that's something you're pursuing, but what do you advise people who are like in this space that are working there? Like, how do you take care of yourself so that you can go back out? Because you're dealing with really hard situations.
I don't think I have it figured out yet. I am trying to find that balance. For me, the way to de-stress is going to the sauna. So I do that like 4 times a week. I don't know if it's healthy, but I'm still working on trying to find that balance because I think for me, I take things very personally. So I feel like when I get asked to do something, it's like I have to do it. It's I know there could be someone else that could do it, but like I have this feeling that no, I have to do it. So it's definitely something that I need to work on.
Yeah.
I think we all can.
Yes. Yeah. So I was asking you about kids earlier because just saying what you were saying, I was you before I started really putting some boundaries on things because I would always get the mom, like yeah, like my son when he was playing football, would be out. I'd be watching him playing football, and I'll be working and taking calls. And after the game, he's like, "You were on your phone the whole time." So anyway, so speaking about young kids, there's a generation of Bhutanese Nepali young people in Cincinnati watching what you do, right? What do you wish them to understand about mental health that you wish someone had said to you?
I want them to understand that your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and take care of your mental health as you would with your physical health. Like if you had diabetes, you'd take medications for it, you'd watch your diet, do all that. Do that for your mental health too. Don't ignore it. I know sometimes like in immigrant families, we think our parents don't understand, especially because the way they grew up, they always had other things to think about, right? So mental health was not something that they had the privilege to think about.
Yeah, it
And
feels
now,
like an indulgence.
Yeah. And
to
so
be thinking about yourself.
in that way. But like now that yes, if, like we have mental health problems, talk about it. If you can't share it with your parents, find a trusted adult and share with them. Like take care of your mental health.
Yeah. So back when you were a kid who didn't talk about where she came from, take yourself back into that place. What do you wish someone would have told you then?
Can you clarify that?
So remember earlier we had talked about how when you first came to Cincinnati, and for some time after that, you were not always so sure what to say about yourself, right? What do you wish at that time someone would have told you? So for a young immigrant Bhutanese refugee that's coming to Cincinnati today, and probably in the same place that you are, where they are not sure who they tell and what the reaction would be, what do you want them to know?
Don't be afraid of. I think I wish someone had told me to not be afraid of where I come from.
Yeah.
And just educated me in what like truly refugee, like being a refugee actually meant. Yeah.
What being a refugee meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that answer for you now?
For now, it means being resilient and not letting, yes, I was born in a refugee camp. I was a refugee, but that does not define me.
Right.
I am so much more than that.
I think that's really powerful. I think it's great that you share that. And then also what you do in your work and with the Nepali Language and Arts Center, I got to witness that pride, that confidence from youth that are members of the Nepali Language and Arts Center at an event, and of sharing that stories. It was stories of resilience. It came from a position of power and confidence. And so that lesson that you just shared, I feel like you're also providing a space for others who have a similar background, either themselves or their parents who came here, grandparents. And just so the center does a really like amazing work. And there was this event. And do you want to share that, like what that event was?
You share about it.
Okay.
You experienced Bryan from a representative of the Cincinnati community. Yeah.
Sure. It was exactly like what Mamta was saying about how that lesson learned, right? That no, it's not a deficit. Like, no, it's who I am is that this refugee background is one of and lives through is in the present now and lives as resilience. It lives as confidence. It lives as an ability to negotiate and navigate different communities, and that's a strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're able to work with different communities in your work. That's a strength. It's not the person that we have a stereotypical view of like in need, holding their hands up. Yeah, sure. Everyone needs help, right?
Initially, yeah.
And then, but you come at it from a position of power and a position of like that can inform and educate others. And I saw this at this event, right, of youth, high school and college age students who organized the event, who were the keynote speakers, who were the MCs for the event. And they shared these stories about how some of them were actual letters that their grandparents had written to the family members, and they shared those stories. And so they translated them, and then others, used a fictionalized letter, but real stories they heard from their grandparents, and how those stories shaped who they are, the youth sharing these stories, and how it provided a base, a home. And how home was defined, it differed, but it was honoring the sacrifices of the grandparents when they came here. Well, actually, before of having to be forced out of their home into a new home, into a third home here in the U.S., and how in each place they demonstrated time and time again a love of self and culture and family and community. And we are here now, despite all of this adversity, to be able to continue to give back. to other family members, to other community members. And I'm thankful that your family members didn't come here by choice, but you're here now because having people here with those values is fantastic. And I'm not from Cincinnati either, but like to see the community there. So and it's like youth. I mean, some of those students were, nursing students. So like I'm a dusty old dad now. And so my knees hurt. And so I'm going to need a nurse to take care of me. And so to see that is great. Right. And so like people who have this background and bring that into their jobs, which often tend to be care, whether it's around real estate, nursing, small business owners with home health care and so on. So that's just, so that was a lot, but it was a great event.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a great event. And the students, the youth all put it together themselves. Yeah.
All youth led. We just provided a space for them and they brought out their creativity.
Yeah.
And it was, that event actually healed a part of like me that also struggled with identity and not being able to share. So it was a beautiful night.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I like the part about the letters. So the grandparents had written letters to the youth, or the youth wrote letters to their grandparents?
The grandparents wrote the letter of like how they ended up here, of like, the struggles that went through and everything. And then the youth shared it.
Okay. I love that. That's pretty...
Or they would have, like, obviously the grandparents can't speak English, so they had them, like, tell them the story, or they write it in their perspective.
That's very grounding. Because I can imagine just growing up as a youth, you're like,
Right, like...
I mean, life is great. I mean, Cincinnati, they don't think a lot about roots, but it's actually quite grounding once you understand where your family comes from. Yeah. And so for Cincinnati, Mamta, we're coming to the end of our podcast. For Cincinnati, the broader city, the people who may never have heard about the Bhutanese community or this history, what do you want them to understand about what it costs to get here and what it takes to stay?
I think for my parents, it cost them their own happiness. Like they were sacrificing not being able to have their native language, not being able to be around their family, all of that for a better future for us, for a chance. Like that was not even guaranteed, for a chance at a better future. But now we're here, we come from a lot of hardships. We come from nothing, but that doesn't define us. We're here to work hard and give back in the best way we can.
Yep, and you're absolutely doing that. You're absolutely doing that. Bryan, do we want to go through the lightning round?
Sure.
Do we have time?
Absolutely. So thank you for this has been great. And thank you for sharing your story and sharing your work that you do. And it just means a lot. And I know you put everything into it and to make the community better. And everything you talk about, like a little bit about your own development, but a lot about how you help the community. It's all community centered. That means a lot. So thank you for that. And so we always like to end the podcast a little bit lighter note, doing some lightning round questions. Clara always gets mad at me because he's always throwing some extra questions and such. But
no, that's all right. But it's the first thing that comes to your mind, like no thinking involved.
Not
just
thinking about it.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yeah,
Okay.
There are no wrong answers, So
what happens if I'm an overthinker?
Fair.
That's why I'm saying the first thing that comes to your mind. So, I don't overthink.
Okay.
I was trying to think of a quote that I saw about overthinking. Something about, I'm overthinking why I'm overthinking why I'm, they kept choosing the word overthinking. So anyway, what's the one Nepali dish that explains everything about where you come from?
Chotpati.
Chotpati. I'll look it up. A mentor who changed the direction you were headed.
No, I can't just name one. I've had So many mentors at different seasons of life, and they all mean so much to me. So I'm not gonna name any.
I think you've also become a mentor as well. So, something Cincinnati has given you that you did not expect.
A community outside of my community.
Ooh.
Like a Cincinnati campus has given me a community outside of my community that makes me feel like I belong and they care.
Yeah. Then that is very much Cincinnati. I love that.
Yeah.
A community outside my community. Yeah. And then what does home mean to you today?
Home means where my people are, my community. My community is my home.
Yeah. Gera or momos? I'm not sure what momos is.
Momo is a type of Nepali dumpling. And it's momo. Like whether it's 1 or 10, it's momo, not momos.
Yeah.
Don't go to Nepal and say momos. They will be mad.
What should I say?
Momo.
Momo, just momo.
Yeah.
Okay.
But gera, I can't even eat gera. I'm vegetarian. So that was...
All right.
It's easy as right.
Enough. So that's an easy answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mamta, I have to say there's definitely something that I did not expect from this conversation. And it's just really your precision has been absolutely wonderful. I know when we started, you're like, I'm not a very detailed person. But, every word that you chose today was really absolutely amazing. It helped us understand where you come from. And, I think that really happens when you spend years trying to figure out where you come from, where you fit, and what that means in the community that you're living in now. So thank you for choosing that, and thank you for agreeing to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was very fun.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad. I'm thankful for your time to be here and thankful for the work that you do. And you talked a lot earlier about trust, and I just want to thank you for the trust that you have in us to have an open conversation and the trust you have in me for the work that we do outside of this podcast, right? So I just appreciate that you always show up for the community, with community. And so thank you for that, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That's it, everybody. You're listening to Roots, Routes, and Voices, Story That Shape America, a Cincinnati Campus podcast. See you next time. Thank you for listening today. The voice you heard in this episode is one of thousands in this region, people whose roots run deep somewhere else and whose routes brought them here to this country. We are grateful they let us into their story.
If today's conversation stayed with you, share it. Pass it to someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review. And if you carry a story of your own roots, your own routes, we want to hear from you. Reach out through CincinnatiCompass.org.
You can find Roots, Routes, and Voices on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you listen. New episodes are rolling out now. Season 2 is made possible with the support of the Marketer Collaborative and the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. We are grateful for both partnerships.
Cincinnati Compass connects people to opportunity and builds a more inclusive region. Learn more at CincinnatiCompass.org. Until next time.
Keep telling your story.